The desperate call. The first sign of trouble wasn't an explosion or an alarm. It was silence. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her tablet, where she'd been cataloging symbols from the ancient precursor ruins, her dark eyes scanning the observation deck of Research Station Kepler-7. The usual hum of conversation between her fellow researchers had stopped. Even the soft clicking sounds that Captain Thexera made when thinking had gone quiet. Elena had been working alongside the Zentari captain for 3 years now, ever since the Galactic Research Council had established this joint station to study the mysterious ruins scattered throughout the Andorian system. She'd learned to read the subtle shifts in Thexera's crystalline features, the way her translucent blue skin would change color based on her emotional state. Right now, those features were locked in an expression Elena had never seen before. Fear. "Captain," Elena asked, setting down her tablet. "What's wrong?" Thexera's large, multifaceted eyes remained fixed on her command console. Her webbed fingers moved across the holographic displays with increasing urgency. The bioluminescent patterns along her neck, usually a calm blue-green, had shifted to rapid pulses of amber and red. "Sensor contacts," Thexera said, her voice carrying that musical quality common to her species, though now tinged with worry. "Multiple contacts. Configuration unknown." Elena moved closer to the console, though the Zentari writing system still looked like elegant squiggles to her human eyes. She could make out the basic tactical display, however, and what she saw made her stomach drop. Dozens of red dots were approaching their station. Too many to count at first glance, moving in perfect formation like a school of fish, or like a swarm. Could they be traitors? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. The outer rim of the Andorian system wasn't on any major trade routes. That's why it had been chosen for the research station. Isolation and safety. "Negative," came another voice. Dr. Keftel, a Moravian researcher whose people were known for their analytical minds, had joined them at the console. His 4 arms worked independently as he pulled up additional sensor data. Energy signatures are unlike any known civilian vessels. Military configuration, but not matching any species in our databases. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. In her 5 years of xenobiological research, she'd encountered over 30 different species. The galaxy was vast, but the known civilizations generally kept track of each other. Finding a completely unknown military force was like discovering a hidden army in your backyard. "Time to intercept," Thexera asked. "At current speed, approximately 4 hours," Keftel replied, his voice carrying that flat, emotionless tone his species used when delivering bad news. 4 hours. Elena looked around the observation deck at her colleagues. 12 researchers from 6 different species, all dedicated to peaceful scientific inquiry. They had no weapons, no military training, no way to defend themselves against whatever was approaching. "We need to send a distress call," Elena said. Thexera's skin shifted through several colors rapidly, a sign of intense internal debate among her people. "To whom?" "The nearest Galactic Council patrol is 3 days away. The Zentari fleet is engaged in exercises in the Vega sector. The Research Council has no military assets." Elena was already moving toward the communications array. "We send it to everyone. Broadcast on all frequencies, all languages. Someone will hear us." As she began composing the message, more sensor data came in. The approaching fleet, and it was definitely a fleet now, consisted of at least 40 vessels. Worse, their energy signatures were growing stronger, suggesting they were accelerating. "Dr. Vasquez," Keftel called out, his analytical calm finally cracking. "You need to see this." Elena hurried back to the sensor display. Keftel had managed to get a better resolution on the approaching ships, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The vessels were organic, not built, but grown. Bone-white hulls that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm, lined with what looked like sensory organs or weapons ports. They moved with the fluid grace of living creatures rather than the rigid patterns of constructed ships. "Vorth," Thexera whispered, her skin going completely pale. The Vorth swarm. Elena had heard the name in xenobiology classes, always spoken in hushed tones. The Vorth were a collective species that existed at the edge of known space, consuming entire civilizations and adding their biological and technological distinctiveness to their own. They'd been responsible for the destruction of at least 6 species that scholars knew of, possibly more. I thought they were just stories, Elena said. So did we all, Thexera replied. Until now. The next hour passed in a blur of frantic activity. Elena crafted the most comprehensive distress call she could manage, including their coordinates, the nature of the threat, and detailed specifications about their station and crew. Meanwhile, Thexera and the other researchers began what preparations they could, securing sensitive data, establishing emergency protocols, and trying to make their small station as difficult a target as possible. The distress signal went out on every frequency Elena could access. Emergency bands, commercial channels, military networks, even the old mining frequencies that prospectors used in the outer systems. She broadcasted in standard Galactic, Zentari, Human English, Moravian, and every other language she could manage. Mayday, Mayday. This is Research Station Kepler 7 in the Andorian system. We are under imminent attack by hostile forces, approximately 40 vessels of unknown configuration. Station complement is 12 researchers, civilian personnel only. We have no military capabilities. Repeat, we are defenseless civilians under attack. Any vessels in range, please respond. The message went out into the void, carried by quantum transmitters toward every corner of known space. Elena had no way of knowing that her desperate call would reach not just the nearest patrol vessels or merchant ships, but would trigger the largest military mobilization in galactic history. 2 hours after the first transmission, the Vorth fleet began their final approach. The organic ships moved with predatory grace, forming hunting patterns that spoke of terrible intelligence. Elena watched on the view screen as the lead vessels began to glow with internal energy, weapons charging for what would likely be a very short battle. Any responses to our distress call? Thexera asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Elena checked the communications board for the 100th time. A few automated acknowledgments from distant beacons, one message from a Moravian cargo hauler expressing sympathy, but explaining they were too far away to help. Nothing from any military forces. We're on our own, Elena said. That's when her console erupted in activity. The first response came from the Human Colonial Defense Force, followed immediately by 3 more from different human military branches. Then civilian responses started flooding in. Human merchant vessels, private security companies, even individual ship owners. Captain, Elena called out, her voice filled with disbelief. I'm getting responses. Lots of them. Thexera moved to Elena's station, her large eyes scanning the rapidly filling communications board. How many? Elena's hands flew over the console, trying to process the incoming messages. I can't count them all. The system is having trouble keeping up. More responses kept coming. Human responses. Elena had worked with humans before. They were known for being helpful, sometimes to a fault. But this was beyond anything she'd expected. This is Admiral Chen of the Human Third Fleet. Receive your distress call. Fleet mobilization in progress. Estimate arrival in 18 hours. Kepler 7. This is Captain Rodriguez of the merchant vessel New Horizons. Changing course to your position. ETA 22 hours. Research Station. This is the Human Defense Coordination Center. Multiple fleets responding to your emergency. Current count shows over 3,000 vessels en route. Elena stared at the display. 3,000 vessels. For 12 researchers. But the messages kept coming. Kepler 7. This is Admiral Jackson, Human Fifth Fleet. We're closer than estimated. Arrival in 14 hours with full battle group. Research Station. This is General Morrison, Human Colonial Marines. Rapid deployment force launching now. We'll be there in 16 hours. The pattern continued for another hour. Human ships from across 3 sectors were changing course, abandoning missions, leaving ports early, all converging on one small research station where 12 civilians were about to be attacked by a force they couldn't possibly resist. Thexera watched the display with growing amazement. I have never seen anything like this. Why are they coming? So many of them. Elena thought about her human colleagues she'd worked with over the years, remembering conversations about human culture and history. Because we asked for help, she said simply. The Vorth fleet was now only an hour away. Elena could see them clearly on the view screen. 40 nightmarish vessels that looked like something out of a fever dream. But for the first time since the crisis began, she felt something other than terror. She felt hope. Because somewhere out in the void, thousands of human ships were racing toward them. Military vessels, civilian craft, private security forces, probably even some pirates who decided that attacking defenseless researchers was crossing a line they wouldn't tolerate. She felt hope. Because somewhere out in the void, thousands of human ships were racing toward them. Military vessels, civilian craft, private security forces, probably even some pirates who decided that attacking defenseless researchers was crossing a line they wouldn't tolerate. Elena looked at Thexera, whose skin had shifted to patterns she'd never seen before, colors that seemed to represent wonder and confusion in equal measure. How many total? Thexera asked. Elena checked the latest count from the Human Defense Coordination Center. The number made her blink twice to make sure she was reading it correctly. 12,437 vessels, she said quietly. And the count is still rising. In the distance, the Vorth swarm continued their approach, 40 predators closing in on what they assumed would be easy prey. They had no way of knowing that their target had just sent out a call that would bring down the largest fleet mobilization in recorded galactic history. The first human ships would arrive in 14 hours. Elena just hoped that would be soon enough. The fleet that changed everything. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching as the largest fleet in human history dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect synchronization. The view screen showed a sight that would be talked about in military academies for centuries to come. Over 12,000 vessels arranged in a formation so vast it stretched across several 100,000 kilometers of space. Fleet Status Report, Chen commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 30 years earning the respect of every officer under her command. All vessels accounted for, Admiral, reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Commander Park. Final count, 12,643 ships. Military assets include the 3rd, 5th, and 7th Fleets, Colonial Defense Forces from 18 systems, and Marine Rapid Deployment Forces. Civilian assets include merchant marines, private security companies, and approximately 3,000 volunteer vessels. Chen nodded, though privately she was still amazed by the response. When the distress call from Kepler-7 had reached Earth's defense networks, it had triggered something unprecedented. Not just official military responses, but a spontaneous uprising of human solidarity that had mobilized everything from corporate security fleets to individual ship owners who'd abandoned their cargo runs to help 12 strangers. Time to target, Chen asked. The Vorth fleet will reach the research station in 43 minutes, replied her tactical officer. We'll arrive in 38 minutes. 5 minutes to spare. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The humans were going to be cutting it close, but they'd make it in time. Admiral, came a new voice from the communication station. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Kretok is requesting immediate conference. Chen sighed. She'd been expecting this. The Galactic Council, the loose confederation of species that governed interstellar politics, didn't like surprises, and humanity showing up with the largest military force in recorded history definitely qualified as a surprise. Put him through. The view screen flickered, showing the distinctive features of Ambassador Kretok, a member of the diplomatic hegemony species. His pale blue skin and elongated skull marked him as one of the galaxy's most experienced negotiators, someone who had spent centuries managing conflicts between species. "Admiral Chen," Kretok began, his synthesized voice carrying undertones of concern. "The Council has been monitoring your fleet movements. We must express our alarm at this unprecedented military mobilization." "Ambassador," Chen replied calmly, "we're responding to a distress call from civilians under attack. This is completely within the bounds of interstellar law. The scale of your response is what concerns us," Kretok continued. 12,000 vessels for a single research station. This appears to be far beyond what the situation requires. Chen's smile hardened slightly. "With respect, Ambassador, 12 researchers are about to be slaughtered by the fourth swarm. In human culture, that's exactly the situation that requires everything we can bring to bear." Through the view screen, Chen could see Kretok's confusion. The mathematical precision that made his species excellent diplomats also made them struggle with human emotional responses. To him, the logical response would be to send a single patrol vessel, attempt a negotiated settlement, and if that failed, file the appropriate forms and move on. To humanity, the attack on Kepler-7 was an attack on innocent life itself. "Admiral," Kretok tried again, "surely you understand that this level of force projection will be seen as aggressive by other species. The Zentari Federation is already expressing concerns about human military expansion." "The Zentari Federation," Chen replied, "has one of their own citizens on that research station, Captain Thexara, commander of Kepler-7. I would have thought they'd be grateful for our response." That gave Kretok pause. Chen could see him accessing information through the neural interface common to his species, probably confirming the details about the station's crew composition. Nevertheless, he continued after a moment, "The Council requests that you limit your response to what is proportional to the threat." Chen looked at her tactical display, where the Vorth fleet showed as 40 red dots closing in on the single blue dot representing Kepler-7. Proportional. As if there was some mathematical formula for how many ships it took to save innocent lives. "Ambassador," Chen said, her voice taking on an edge that made her bridge crew unconsciously straighten. "I'm going to explain something about humans that your species seems to have trouble understanding. When someone calls for help, we don't calculate proportional responses. We don't run cost-benefit analyses. We don't check with committees or file the appropriate paperwork." The view screen showed Kretok's increasingly uncomfortable expression as Chen continued. "We help, all of us, with everything we have, because the alternative, letting innocent people die while we debate the proper response, is unacceptable to us on a fundamental level that transcends politics or diplomacy." "But, Admiral, the conversation is over, Ambassador." Chen out. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in momentary silence. Chen's officers had heard that speech before, in various forms. It was the same principle that had driven human expansion into space, the same philosophy that had made them reliable allies and formidable enemies. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Park called out. "Incoming transmission from the research station. Put them through." The view screen flickered again, this time showing the interior of what was clearly a civilian research facility. Chen could see several species represented among the crew, but the human woman who appeared to be speaking looked remarkably calm for someone facing imminent death. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez of Research Station Kepler-7. The woman said, "Admiral, we can't believe you're coming. All of you. Why?" Chen studied the young scientist's face. Elena Vasquez looked like she could be Chen's own daughter, the same dark hair and determined eyes. That similarity made Chen's next words come from the heart rather than from military protocol. "Dr. Vasquez, you sent out a call for help. That's all the reason we need." Elena's eyes widened slightly. "But there are only 12 of us. You're bringing thousands of ships for 12 people." "Doctor," Chen said gently, "if there had been only one of you, we would have brought the same fleet. That's what humans do. Through the transmission, Chen could see other members of the research station crew gathering around Elena. A Zentari officer who must be Captain Thexara, a Moravian scientist, others representing species from across the galaxy, all of them listening to this conversation between two humans, trying to understand what they were witnessing. "Admiral," Elena said, her voice thick with emotion, "the Vorth fleet will be here in 35 minutes. "We'll be there in 30, Chen replied. "Just hold on a little longer." The transmission ended, and Chen turned her attention back to her fleet. 30 minutes to save 12 lives. From a purely mathematical standpoint, it was absurd. From a human standpoint, it was the only thing that mattered. "All ships." Chen broadcast on the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Chen. In 29 minutes, we're going to engage the Vorth swarm. They're expecting to find a defenseless research station. Instead, they're going to find us." Across the massive fleet, thousands of captains and commanders listened to their admiral's words, military officers who had spent their careers preparing for this moment, civilian captains who had never fired a shot in anger but had come anyway, private security forces, merchant marines, even reformed pirates who had decided that some lines couldn't be crossed. "The Vorth swarm has spent centuries consuming civilizations," Chen continued. "Today, they're going to learn why nobody threatens humans or those under our protection. All ships, prepare for combat operations." What happened next was a masterclass in human military coordination. The massive fleet began reorganizing itself with practiced efficiency. Military vessels took point positions, their heavy weaponry and shields forming the first line of defense. Civilian ships with defensive capabilities formed a second line, ready to assist. Non-combat vessels moved to support positions, ready to provide medical aid, supplies, or evacuation assistance as needed. The organization wasn't just impressive from a tactical standpoint. It was unprecedented from a sociological one. 12,000 ships from dozens of different organizations, military branches, corporations, and private individuals, all working together with a unity of purpose that would have been impossible for most species to achieve. "Admiral," her tactical officer called out, "the Vorth fleet has engaged the research station." Chen watched as the tactical display showed the enemy ships opening fire on Kepler-7. The research station's shields, designed for protection against cosmic radiation and small debris, lasted approximately 15 seconds against military-grade weapons. But they'd done their job. The station was intact, if defenseless. "All ships," Chen commanded, "execute jump." The human fleet moved into battle with the precision of a military exercise and the fury of a righteous cause. The lead ships emerged from their micro-jumps directly between the Vorth fleet and the research station, weapons already charged and targeting solutions locked. The Vorth swarm, 40 ships strong and accustomed to overwhelming their prey through sheer numbers, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy force that outnumbered them 300 to 1. "This is Admiral Chen to the Vorth fleet." Chen broadcast on all frequencies. "You are attacking civilian researchers under human protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came not in words, but in weapons fire. The Vorth ships, apparently deciding that the best defense was a good offense, launched everything they had at the nearest human vessels. It was a mistake that would echo through galactic history. The human fleet's response was swift, coordinated, and absolutely devastating. Military vessels returned fire with precision strikes that disabled Vorth ships rather than destroying them outright. Support vessels moved to protect the research station while civilian craft formed defensive perimeters that made further Vorth attacks impossible. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, 38 Vorth ships had been disabled and captured, while 2 had managed to escape. The human fleet had suffered minimal damage and 0 casualties. But the real victory wasn't military. It was the message that had been sent to the galaxy. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Chen received a transmission from Research Station Kepler-7. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared on screen again, but this time she wasn't alone. The entire crew of the station was visible behind her, representing 6 different species, all alive and safe. "Admiral Chen," Elena said, her voice barely steady, "I don't know how to thank you. All of you." "No thanks necessary, Doctor," Chen replied. "Just doing what humans do." As the fleet began organizing itself for the journey home, Chen reflected on what had just happened. 12,000 ships had responded to a distress call from 12 strangers. Civilians had abandoned profitable cargo runs. Military forces had diverted from strategic missions. Individuals had risked their lives and ships for people they'd never met. Ambassador Kretok had called it disproportionate. The Galactic Council would probably spend years debating the political implications. Other species would analyze the tactical aspects and try to understand the strategic thinking behind such a massive deployment. They would all miss the point. The point wasn't tactics or politics or strategy. The point was that 12 people had asked for help, and humanity had answered with everything it had, because that's what humans did. That's what they had always done. And now the galaxy knew it. The fleet that had arrived to save Research Station Kepler-7 would return to their various duties and missions. But the story of what had happened here would spread throughout known space, carried by the survivors and the witnesses, told and retold until it became legend. The legend of the day humanity showed the galaxy what it truly meant to answer a call for help.